Brazil, 1720. Part 1. The Journey to a New Land.
In the year 1720, Lisbon was a bustling city filled with the sounds of merchants haggling in the marketplace, ships' bells clanging in the harbor, and the constant murmur of hopeful dreamers speaking of fortunes to be made in the new world.
João Fernandes was one of those dreamers. A humble farmer, João had always provided for his family through sheer hard work and determination. But the land he tilled yielded barely enough to survive.
His wife, Maria, and their 4 children, Luis, Ana, Pedro, and Teresa, often went to bed with rumbling stomachs and dreams of a better life. "Maria," João said one evening as they sat by the dim light of a single candle in their modest home,
"I've been hearing tales of gold in Brazil, riches beyond our wildest dreams. I think we should go."
Maria looked at him,
her eyes reflecting the flickering flame. She saw the determination in João's eyes, a fire that had not been there before.
"But João," she began softly,
"what if we fail? What if it's just stories?" João took her hands in his, rough and calloused from years of labor. "We have nothing to lose, my love. If we stay, we'll be forever trapped in this cycle of poverty. But if we go, there is hope. We can give our children a future." After much deliberation and prayer, Maria agreed. They sold their small plot of land and what few possessions they had, gathering just enough money to secure passage on a ship bound for Brazil. The day they left Lisbon was bittersweet. Friends and neighbors came to bid them farewell, offering blessings and small tokens for the journey. João held his children close as they boarded the ship, promising them a brighter future. The voyage across the Atlantic was arduous. The ship was cramped and the food scarce. João and Maria did their best to keep their children's spirits high, telling stories and singing songs. The ocean's vastness seemed endless, and there were days when the waves grew so fierce that the ship creaked and groaned under the pressure. Luis, the eldest, tried to be brave for his younger siblings, but João could see the fear in his eyes.
"Papa," Luis whispered one night as the ship rocked violently,
"do you think we'll find gold in Brazil?" João smiled, though his own heart was heavy with doubt. "I believe we will, my son. And even if we don't, we will find a new beginning, together as a family." After weeks at sea, the ship finally arrived at the port of Rio de Janeiro. The sight of the lush green mountains and the warm sun was a stark contrast to the cold gray sea. João and his family disembarked, their legs shaky from the long voyage but their spirits lifted by the promise of new opportunities. From Rio de Janeiro, they made their way inland to Minas Gerais, the heart of the gold rush. The journey was long and treacherous, through dense forests and over rugged mountains. They traveled by foot and by cart, often relying on the kindness of strangers for food and shelter. Despite the hardships, João's faith never wavered. Each night, he gathered his family to pray, asking God for strength and guidance. When they finally arrived in Minas Gerais, they were greeted by a bustling community of miners and prospectors, all seeking their fortunes in the rich earth. The landscape was a patchwork of tents and crude shacks, with men working tirelessly from dawn till dusk. João found a small plot of land on the outskirts of the settlement and built a modest hut for his family. It wasn't much, but it was a start. João wasted no time in joining the other miners. He purchased a pickaxe and shovel with the last of their money and set to work. The mines were dark and dangerous, and the air was thick with dust. João's hands, already rough from years of farming, grew blistered and bloody from the constant digging. But he pressed on, driven by the hope of striking gold and providing for his family. Maria did her best to keep the household running smoothly. She planted a small garden outside their hut, growing vegetables to supplement their meager rations. The children helped where they could, gathering firewood and fetching water from the nearby stream. Despite the hardships, there were moments of joy and laughter. João would often return home exhausted but smiling, his children running to greet him with stories of their day. "Papa, look, I found a shiny rock," Pedro exclaimed one evening, holding up a small pebble. João chuckled and ruffled his son's hair. "That's wonderful, Pedro. Perhaps it's a sign of good things to come." As the months went by, João's search for gold proved fruitless. The earth seemed to mock him, yielding nothing but stones and dirt. The family's initial hope began to wane as their situation grew more desperate.
Food became scarce, and João found himself begging in the streets of the settlement, a once proud man reduced to seeking alms to feed his children. Yet, through it all, João's faith remained unshaken. Each night, as they huddled together in their tiny hut, he led his family in prayer, thanking God for the little they had and asking for the strength to continue. "God has a plan for us," he would say, his voice filled with conviction. "We must trust in His wisdom and remain faithful." And so, despite the hardships, João and his family persevered, their journey to a new land filled with both trials and moments of grace. The promise of a better life kept them going, their faith a constant beacon in the darkness. Part 2. The struggle begins. The first light of dawn cast a soft, golden glow over the rugged landscape of Minas Gerais. The chirping of birds mingled with the distant clatter of pickaxes striking the earth as miners set out for another day of relentless toil. João Fernandes, now a seasoned figure among the prospectors, rose before the sun, his body aching from the previous day's labor but his spirit unyielding. "Another day, another chance," João whispered to himself, looking at the sleeping forms of his wife Maria and their children, Luis, Ana, Pedro, and Teresa. He kissed each of them gently on the forehead before stepping out into the cool morning air. João's journey to the mines was a familiar one, marked by dusty paths and the scent of damp earth. The mine itself was a labyrinth of tunnels, some supported by wooden beams, others threatening to collapse at any moment. As he entered, he greeted fellow miners with nods and brief words of encouragement. Despite the competitive nature of their work, there was a camaraderie born of shared hardship and hope. The work was grueling. The deeper João dug, the harder it became to breathe. Dust filled his lungs, and his muscles screamed in protest with every swing of the pickaxe. The promise of gold seemed to recede further into the shadows with each passing day. Yet, João pushed on, driven by the image of his family and the better life he longed to provide for them. "Papa, be careful today," Ana had said that morning, her eyes wide with concern. "The mines are dangerous." João had smiled and ruffled her hair. "Don't worry, minha querida. God watches over us." The days turned into weeks, and João's efforts remained unrewarded. Each evening, he returned home with empty hands but a heart full of hope. Maria met him at the door, her face a mask of calm determination despite the worry that gnawed at her soul. "Any luck today?" she would ask, her voice steady. "Not today," João would reply, pulling her into an embrace. "But soon, Maria. I can feel it." Their modest hut was a refuge from the harsh realities of the mines. Though small and sparsely furnished, it was filled with love and faith. Maria's garden flourished, providing vegetables that supplemented their meager diet. The children helped with chores, their laughter and playful banter a balm for João's weary soul. One evening, as they gathered for their simple meal, Pedro excitedly shared his day's adventure. "Mama, I found a shiny rock near the stream. Do you think it's gold?" Maria smiled and took the pebble from his hand, inspecting it with feigned seriousness. "Perhaps it is, Pedro. Maybe you're our good luck charm." João watched his family with a mixture of pride and sorrow. Despite their dire circumstances, they remained hopeful and united. He silently prayed for a miracle, for something to validate his relentless pursuit. As the months dragged on, João's search grew increasingly desperate. The mines seemed to mock him, yielding nothing but stones and dirt. His hands were raw and bloody, his body ached in ways he never thought possible. The weight of his family's survival pressed heavily on his shoulders. One particularly harsh day, João worked from dawn until the sun dipped below the horizon, the dim light of his lantern casting eerie shadows on the walls of the tunnel. The silence was oppressive,
broken only by the occasional sound of rocks shifting.
God, please, he whispered into the darkness, his voice trembling.
Help me find something, anything. I can't let my family suffer like this. His pleas echoed back to him, unanswered. Exhausted and defeated, João sank to his knees, tears streaming down his face. He thought of Luis, Ana, Pedro, and Teresa, their innocent faces filled with hope each time he left for the mines. As he sat there, he remembered a conversation he had overheard earlier that day. Two miners, old friends, had been discussing their own struggles. "I've been at this for 2 years now," one had said, his voice tinged with bitterness. "Not a single nugget of gold to show for it. Maybe it's time to give up." The other had nodded, his expression grim. "Sometimes I think the gold isn't real, just a story to keep us digging." João had listened, but he couldn't afford to lose hope. His family depended on him. He rose slowly, gripping his pickaxe with renewed determination. He would dig until his hands could no longer hold the tools if that's what it took. At home, Maria noticed the deepening lines of worry on João's face. She tried to lighten his burden in every way she could. Their evenings became a time of shared stories and dreams, a way to keep the spark of hope alive. "Remember our garden back in Lisbon?" Maria asked one evening, her voice soft. "The way the flowers bloomed every spring?" João nodded, a small smile playing on his lips. "Yes, I remember. It was beautiful." Maria leaned in, her eyes shining. "We'll have a garden here too, João. Even more beautiful. And the children will run through it, laughing and playing." João took her hand, squeezing it gently. "We will, Maria. We will." Despite the daily disappointments, João's love for his family and his unwavering faith kept him going. Each morning, he rose before dawn, kissed his children goodbye, and set out for the mines. Each evening, he returned weary but hopeful, praying for the day when his efforts would finally be rewarded. And so, the struggle continued, a testament to João's enduring spirit and the unbreakable bond of his family. They faced each challenge with faith and determination, believing that their perseverance would one day lead to the brighter future they dreamed of. Part 3. The Depths of Despair. The relentless pursuit of gold had taken its toll on João Fernandes. Each day, the mine seemed darker and more oppressive, the air thick with dust and despair. Despite months of backbreaking labor, João had yet to uncover even the smallest nugget of gold. His once strong and determined body was now gaunt and weary, and the light in his eyes had dimmed. The other miners could see the toll it had taken on João. His hands were a mess of blisters and calluses, and his clothes hung loosely on his frame. They whispered among themselves, sharing stories of his unwavering determination and the quiet desperation that had begun to creep into his demeanor. One particularly grueling day, João swung his pickaxe with all the strength he could muster. The sound of metal striking rock echoed through the tunnel, a monotonous rhythm that matched the beating of his heart. Sweat poured down his face, stinging his eyes and soaking his clothes. Each swing felt heavier than the last, the weight of his failures pressing down on him. "God, where are you?" João muttered, his voice barely audible over the clatter of mining tools. "Why have you forsaken me?" He paused to catch his breath, leaning against the cool, damp wall of the tunnel. His thoughts drifted to his family, waiting for him at home. He pictured Maria's worried face, Luis' attempts to be brave, Anna's innocent questions, Pedro's enthusiasm, and little Teresa's wide, hopeful eyes. Meanwhile, at home, Maria did her best to keep the household running smoothly. She saw the toll the mines were taking on João and worried constantly about his health and well-being. She tried to stretch their dwindling supplies, making soups and stews from whatever vegetables she could coax from the garden. "Mama, will Papa find gold today?" Teresa asked one evening, her voice full of childlike hope. Maria forced a smile, brushing a lock of hair from Teresa's forehead. "I pray he does, my dear. We must have faith." But as the months dragged on, the strain became more evident. Their once modest but sufficient meals grew smaller, and Maria often went without so that her children could eat. The children noticed the change, though they tried to hide their concerns. In a desperate bid to feed his family, João took to begging in the streets of the settlement. It was a humbling and humiliating experience for a man who had always prided himself on his hard work and integrity. He approached strangers with downcast eyes, holding out his hand and muttering pleas for help. "Please, sir, a little food for my family," he would say, his voice barely above a whisper. Some would give him a few coins or a scrap of bread, while others turned away, pretending not to hear. Each encounter chipped away at João's spirit, but he endured it for the sake of his wife and children. One day, as he stood in the bustling market square, a well-dressed man approached him. João recognized him as one of the more successful prospectors, a man who had struck it rich early on.
"João, isn't it?" the man said, his tone condescending.
"Still no luck in the mines, I see." João nodded, his face burning with shame. "No, senhor, not yet." The man reached into his pocket and tossed a few coins at João's feet. "Here, for your troubles." João bent to pick up the coins, his hands trembling. "Thank you, senor." As the man walked away, João felt a surge of anger and humiliation. He clenched his fists, fighting back tears. "God, why must I endure this? What have I done to deserve such suffering?" Determined not to give up, João returned to the mines with renewed resolve. He dug deeper, the darkness closing in around him. The other miners watched him with a mixture of pity and admiration, marveling at his perseverance. One evening, as the sun set and the shadows grew long, João found himself alone in the tunnel. The other miners had already gone home, but he continued to work, driven by a desperate need to find something, anything, that would justify his efforts. "God, please," he whispered into the darkness. "Help me find something. I can't let my family suffer like this." The silence was deafening, broken only by the sound of his pickaxe striking rock. João's body ached, and his hands were raw and bleeding. He swung the pickaxe one last time, and then, exhausted, he sank to his knees, his chest heaving with sobs. "God, where are you?" he cried, his voice echoing through the tunnel. "Why have you abandoned me?" As he knelt there, broken and defeated, João heard a voice, deep and resonant, echo in his mind. "Continue digging." He looked around, his heart pounding. "Who are you?" he whispered, his voice trembling. "Take up your pickaxe and dig," the voice commanded again, firm and unyielding. João hesitated, his mind racing. He felt a strange mixture of fear and hope. Was he losing his mind? Or was this truly a sign from God? He took a deep breath, wiped the sweat from his brow, and picked up his tools. With renewed determination, João began to dig once more. Each swing of the pickaxe felt guided by an unseen hand, his movements steady and purposeful. He worked tirelessly, the minutes stretching into hours. As the night wore on, a faint glimmer of hope sparked in his heart. Suddenly, his pickaxe struck something hard. João paused, his breath catching in his throat. He dug more carefully, his hands trembling with anticipation. The dim light of his lantern flickered, casting eerie shadows on the walls. And then he saw it. A blinding golden light burst from the ground, illuminating the tunnel. João gasped, falling to his knees. Before him lay an unimaginable treasure of gold, shimmering and beautiful. Tears streamed down his face as he stared in disbelief. "Thank you, God," he cried, his voice choked with emotion. "Thank you for this blessing." The voice spoke once more, gentle and reassuring. "This is my gift to you, João, for your unwavering faith and righteousness." Overwhelmed with gratitude, João fell to his knees and wept openly. He had finally found what he had been searching for, and it was more than he could have ever dreamed. His faith had been tested, and he had emerged victorious, guided by a divine hand. With renewed hope and a heart full of gratitude,
João gathered the precious gold and made his way home, his steps light and his spirit soaring. The long and arduous journey had finally borne fruit, and he knew that this was only the beginning of a new chapter in his life. When João arrived home, the sight of his family brought fresh tears to his eyes. He called out to them, his voice trembling with joy. "Maria, children, come see!" he shouted, his heart pounding with excitement. They rushed to his side, their eyes wide with wonder as they saw the gold. Tears of joy and relief flowed freely as they embraced, their hearts filled with gratitude and hope. From that moment on, João's life would never be the same. His faith had carried him through the darkest times, and now it had led him to a future filled with promise and abundance. Part 4. Redemption and Transformation. The revelation of gold brought an overwhelming sense of relief and joy to João and his family. The light of dawn found them still huddled together, marveling at the newfound treasure that would change their lives forever. The once modest and dimly lit hut now felt filled with the warmth of hope and a bright future. Maria's eyes sparkled with tears as she clutched João's hands. "You did it, João. You never gave up." João, with a wide smile on his face, replied, "It wasn't just me. It was our faith, our love, and God's guidance. Now, we can finally have the life we've dreamed of." Their children, Luis, Ana, Pedro, and Teresa, danced around them, their laughter echoing through the small space. João watched them, his heart swelling with pride and gratitude. The dark days of struggle and despair seemed like a distant memory, replaced by the golden glow of promise. The next day, João set out to have the gold refined and turned into currency. He visited the local goldsmith, a skilled craftsman who had helped many miners convert their finds into wealth. The workshop was a bustling place, filled with the sound of hammers on metal and the heat of the forge. "Senor Almeida," João greeted the goldsmith, holding out a small sack filled with gold. "I found something incredible, and I need your help." Senor Almeida, an older man with a wise and kind demeanor, inspected the gold with practiced eyes. He nodded appreciatively. "This is a significant find, João. It will take some time to process, but you will be a wealthy man." João's heart raced with excitement. "Thank you, senor. Please, do whatever it takes." Days turned into weeks as Senor Almeida worked diligently to refine the gold. João visited frequently, watching the transformation with awe. The raw, unpolished nuggets slowly turned into gleaming bars and coins, each one a testament to João's perseverance and faith. With the refined gold in hand, João ventured into the bustling marketplace to trade and invest. The market was a lively place, filled with merchants selling everything from spices to textiles. The vibrant colors and tantalizing scents were a stark contrast to the dim, dusty tunnels of the mines. João approached a merchant known for his fair dealings and wide array of goods. "Senor Cardoso," he began, his voice filled with newfound confidence, "I have gold to trade, and I wish to invest in goods and land." Senor Cardoso, a shrewd but honest businessman, inspected the gold and nodded. "You have a fortune here, João. What do you need?" João outlined his plans to purchase land, build a new home, and invest in a variety of businesses to ensure a stable and prosperous future for his family. The two men negotiated fair prices, and João walked away with deeds, contracts, and a sense of triumph. With his newfound wealth, João purchased a beautiful estate on the outskirts of the settlement. The land was fertile, the house grand and spacious, a stark contrast to their humble hut. João and Maria marveled at the sprawling fields, the lush gardens, and the sturdy walls of their new home. "Can you believe this, Maria?" João asked, his voice choked with emotion. "This is our home now. Our children will grow up here, surrounded by beauty and opportunity." Maria hugged him tightly, tears of joy streaming down her face. "It's more than I ever dreamed of, João. Thank you for never giving up." The children explored their new surroundings with wide-eyed wonder, their laughter filling the air. Luis discovered a small stream where he could fish, Ana found a patch of wildflowers perfect for picking. Pedro reveled in the open fields where he could run freely, and Teresa delighted in the orchard, already imagining the fruits they would harvest. As the weeks turned into months, João's transformation from a desperate miner to a prosperous landowner was complete. He expanded his investments, ensuring multiple streams of income. The estate flourished, becoming a hub of activity and growth. João employed many of the men he had once toiled alongside in the mines, offering them fair wages and better working conditions. One evening, João gathered his family in the main hall of their new home. The room was elegantly furnished, the flickering light of the fireplace casting a warm glow. He looked at each of them, his heart full of gratitude. "My dear family," he began, his voice steady. "We have been through so much. Our journey has been filled with trials, but our faith and love have carried us through. I thank God every day for this blessing and for each of you." Maria, sitting beside him, added, "Let us never forget the struggles that brought us here and always remain grateful and humble." João nodded, holding her hand. "And let us always use our blessings to help others, just as we were helped." Their lives were transformed, not just by the wealth they had gained, but by the strength of their bond and the faith that had seen them through the darkest times. João's story spread throughout Minas Gerais, inspiring others to hold on to their faith and never give up, no matter how dire the circumstances. To give thanks, João and his family visited the local church, a small but beautiful building at the heart of the community. The priest welcomed them warmly, and João shared his story with the congregation, his voice filled with emotion. "God tested my faith, and in my darkest moments, He showed me the way. This gold is not just a treasure, but a symbol of His love and guidance. I am eternally grateful." The congregation listened in rapt attention, moved by João's tale of perseverance and divine intervention. They prayed together, their voices rising in a chorus of gratitude and hope. From that day forward, João dedicated his life to helping others, using his wealth to build schools, support local businesses, and provide for those in need. He never forgot the struggles he had faced, and his heart remained humble and kind. Years later, João sat in the garden of his estate, watching his grandchildren play among the flowers and trees. Maria sat beside him, her hand in his, both of them content and at peace. "We've been truly blessed," João said, his voice filled with wonder. Maria smiled, leaning her head on his shoulder. "Yes, we have. And we've shared that blessing with so many others." João nodded, his heart full. That's the greatest treasure of all. The legacy of João Fernandes, the man who found gold in the depths of despair and used it to transform not just his own life but the lives of countless others, lived on. His story was a testament to the power of faith, perseverance, and the boundless love of a pure and just heart. Part 5. The Everlasting Faith. Years passed, and João's life continued to be a testament to the power of faith and perseverance. His family thrived, his wealth grew, and his influence in the community became profound. But João never let his success change the core values that had guided him through his darkest days. In the grand hall of their estate, João and Maria often hosted gatherings for the local community. These events were filled with laughter, music, and an abundance of food. João believed in sharing his blessings and creating a sense of unity and support among his neighbors. One evening, as the sun set and the hall filled with the warm glow of candlelight, João addressed the guests. "My friends, we are here not just to celebrate our fortunes, but to remember that it is our faith and unity that make us truly wealthy." The guests nodded in agreement, raising their glasses in a toast. João's words resonated deeply, reminding everyone of the journey he had taken and the principles he upheld. In addition to social gatherings, João dedicated a significant portion of his wealth to building a community center. This center became a hub of activity, offering education, vocational training, and support for those in need. João believed in empowering others, just as he had been given a second chance. One day, while visiting the center, João watched as children learned to read and write, their faces filled with excitement and curiosity.
He saw young men and women learning trades that would secure their futures and elderly folks finding companionship and support.
Señor João, a young teacher approached him, her eyes shining with gratitude.
Because of you, these children have a future. We can never thank you enough. João smiled warmly. It's not just because of me. It's because of all of us working together, supporting each other. That's what truly matters. João's faith remained a central part of his life. He and Maria continued to attend church regularly, giving thanks for their blessings and seeking guidance in all they did. The church, once a small and modest building, had grown with the support of João's donations and the community's efforts. One Sunday, João was asked to speak during the service. He stood before the congregation, his heart full of gratitude and humility.
"My dear friends," he began, his voice steady and warm,
"I stand before you as a testament to God's grace and the power of unwavering faith. There were times when I was lost in the darkness, but through prayer and perseverance, I found the light." The congregation listened intently, moved by João's sincerity. We must remember that our true wealth lies not in gold or material possessions, but in our faith, our love for one another, and our ability to give and support those in need. As he spoke, João could see the faces of the people who had become like family to him. He saw the gratitude in their eyes and felt a deep sense of fulfillment. His journey had not just been about finding gold, but about finding purpose and meaning in his life. One afternoon, as João walked through the lush gardens of his estate, he reflected on his journey. The flowers were in full bloom, a riot of colors and scents that filled the air. Birds sang in the trees, and the gentle breeze carried with it a sense of peace. He found Maria sitting by a fountain, reading a book. She looked up and smiled as he approached, her eyes full of love and contentment.
"João, you look deep in thought," she said, closing her book.
He sat beside her, taking her hand in his. "I was just thinking about our journey, about how far we've come." Maria nodded, her expression thoughtful. "It's been a remarkable journey, hasn't it? Filled with challenges and blessings." João kissed her hand gently. "I couldn't have done it without you and our faith. It's what sustained me through the darkest times." Maria smiled, her eyes twinkling. "And it's what will continue to sustain us, no matter what the future holds." Together, they sat in the garden, their hearts filled with gratitude and love. João knew that his story was not just about finding gold, but about the enduring power of faith, love, and community. It was a story he would continue to share, inspiring others to hold on to their faith and never give up, no matter the challenges they faced. In the years that followed, João's legacy grew. The village flourished, the community center thrived, and the church remained a beacon of hope and faith. João and Maria, now elders in their community, were revered not just for their wealth, but for their kindness, generosity, and unwavering faith. One day, as they walked through the bustling village square, João and Maria were approached by a young man.
"Lord João, Lady Maria," he said, bowing respectfully.
"Your story has inspired me. I want to make a difference, just like you have."
João placed a hand on the young man's shoulder. His eyes filled with pride.
"You can, my friend. Remember, it's not about the gold you find, but the faith you hold and the love you share. That is the true treasure." The young man nodded, his face determined. "Thank you. I will remember your words." As João and Maria continued their walk, they felt a deep sense of fulfillment. Their journey had been one of faith, perseverance, and love, and their story would live on, inspiring future generations to believe in the power of faith and the importance of community. And so, João Fernandes, the man who had once been a poor miner, became a legend in Minas Gerais. His story of faith, love, and redemption was a beacon of hope, reminding everyone that with faith, anything is possible. His life was a testament to the enduring power of faith and the incredible impact one person can have on the world when guided by love and righteousness. Thank you for watching this incredible story of João Fernandes and his unwavering faith. If you enjoyed this tale of perseverance and divine intervention, Please leave a comment below, share your thoughts and experiences, and let us know how this story touched your heart. Don't forget to subscribe to Faith Proofs, share this video with your friends and family, and give us a thumbs up to support our channel. Until the next story of faith, God bless you.